Okay, let's do this. Phil, how are you doing? Important guy, hello. How's things? The light is particularly bright today. Oh, man. I don't know if it's the angle I'm sat at or what, but the key light is brighter than I expected. Almost losing it. I hate strings. Persevere. Persevere. Okay. So talking of perseverance, um, I we have the application up and running to some extent, right? So yesterday we made a little bit more progress. We put some task stuff in. The app is starting to come together, right? Without a doubt. Now there are some things that are not working that I kind of want to tinker with and fix as I go. Make sure that I'm not breaking things. Let me check. Yeah, that's been pushed. So that means that has that fix in place. Cool. Okay. But what I want to talk about is as I go today, and the next couple of streams as I tinker with some of these things and get them like refined and working, is feedback. So one of the things I want to do is provide the ability for anyone watching, if they want to test out the application, to be able to use it, right? But I obviously understand the application's not in a final state. So how do I gather feedback? So if I say, hey, you want to use the application, right? It's not just use the application and run with it, right? I've got to come up with some things I want to know, like focus my my questions around not necessarily getting the answers I want, because that won't be the purpose of feedback, but being able to say, look, I know there's missing pieces. I'm not asking for features. So do I deliver, here's what the vision is, like here's the intention of the application, here's the way I see it flowing, here's the way I see it working, and then let people go at it with that what's the word? Um, pre-existing idea. I'm not sure that's quite the right term, but do I kind of lay down the groundwork and say, hey, here's what it's going to do, here's what it's doing? Preconception. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Roland. Good morning. Do I lay that out and say, hey, here's what it's going to do? Can you give me feedback on what it is doing? Or do I basically just open it up, let people play if they're interested, see if it flows right for them, see if there's things that they would do differently, and just gather that feedback and filter through it. I'm not trying to get ideas, so I'm not trying to harvest ideas from it. I want to be clear about that part. What I'm trying to do is see if the concepts show through and if people are liking that. Now, if you've watched the stream for long enough, you've seen the application, so you probably do get an idea. You don't need to test it. I'm not looking for anyone to say, oh, well, this doesn't work and that doesn't work, because I'm going to find them as is. So how do you gather effective feedback? And it's not just about this. Like if you're building applications, what do you consider effective feedback? Do you ask for feedback? And how do you stop yourself from changing the application in response to feedback? These and more questions. So let's get let's get the changes piece working. Let's see if we can get that up and running. So for changes, we need pipelines. Yesterday we talked about these two. So the only difference between this and this is that this is focused on the application component pieces. This is focused on receiving the things. They both have Mongo. This one creates a pipelines one. This one they're both pipelines, so they both use the same database connection, right? Why is one using a host builder context? Oh, because I called it host context in one and host builder context in the other. Great fail there. We use Mongo outbots. We don't use the outbots in this one because yeah, there's no need for the outbots, but that's fine. Okay, so let's get this consolidated. Because it does receive and send, so it's fine. The reason I'm going to consolidate it is because there's little reason to scale one of these out without the other anyway. And the ultimate goal of these is basically to configure these services so that these get switched on or off. So I can scale out copies of this receiver. Or run multiple deployments of this receiver with different services. So I can say, okay, well, the changes I'm going to see a lot more of, but the planning items and users I don't need as many of. So I might do a deployment with the planning items and users, and then have the changes have three running instances versus the one for the planning items and users, maybe, or vice versa. I won't necessarily scale them in line. So that's actually probably why I brought these out in the first place, is because they are subtly different, but the same thing. Again, if I do it this way right now, then I end up creating a whole load more of these, and I'm creating yet more images, more structure for what benefit, right? They're almost identical in behavior, right? They're in the same group anyway. Actually, pipelines integrations, pipelines changes, but they're all pipelines, so it doesn't really make a difference what I use here. So let's move this one. You're about to move change receiver, yeah. And we do add Kafka, add mediator, add Kafka. Let's do services that add transient changes receiver. Refactor, adjust namespaces, yeah. So that's that piece. Then over here, we don't have that now, but we do need that now in here. So again, these are pieces from my library. Add outbots, add outbots. There's no outbots on that one, so that means we need an outbots publisher and the outbots publishing service. Oh, got that part. Figured out add event receiver, changes receiver. I want to streamline that a little bit. That would be good. Okay. Configuration. Outbots publisher. Add outbots. Fail to import. Really? Oh, it's installing. Okay. Oh, I know why that is. Watch this. This is annoying. This needs to get changed. If it doesn't rely upon the host, you shouldn't have to have that host. I mean, yeah. But if you had a third party and their site is down or whatever, you don't want to have your build take 30 minutes to figure out, oh, I don't have access to this repository if you don't have any dependency on it just because you added it once. Install package Mongo. Outbox publisher. Add basic worker service. So this will now run 2 extra host services. So, while I'm sat here, any opinions on how you would gather feedback on an application? Um, Settings. That's more appropriate. That's interesting. I could have messed that up royally. Huh. Kafka configuration. Using console. That's fine. Receivers, change the receiver. Because ultimately this goes to the same code path. So there's no real damage here by doing this. Okay, so we can essentially, is there any Mongo differences? Pipelines, context, lookup DB context. It uses the same stuff anyway. The DB context is there for those objects. It's fine. Okay, so I think we can delete that one. Yes. I think we can also delete at this point this one. I've got old branches and stuff if that's necessary. Just to try and clean things up, right? Let's get on to as few projects as we can. Let's build that. I'm going to do a pass of all the warnings because there's a lot of repetitive patterns in there as far as the types of warning you get, why you get a warning, and I'll do one big pass and just review it all so that we get the pattern in place and we can just jump from warning to warning to warning and not have to stress over that one. So that's built. I suppose we kind of want to run this, don't we? We need Kafka to be up and running properly though. Dot services down Kafka. So on this side, this often happens, but on the headlamp side, so yesterday I restarted the machine and I do have a Redis deployment, but I now have a broken Redis deployment as well. So I'm not sure why that deployment is broken. View YAML. I didn't specify to scale out to 2. But it knows they're both part of the same deployment, which is strange. I don't think I can actually delete that one though, 'cause I think it'll just come back. Yep, it just keeps repeating. So we might have to figure out how to turn on that one. Okay, so let's run full stack. Oh yeah, that's a problem. Delete that one. Let's go and edit configurations right this second. So we've got some, I don't know, project Docker. I can delete that one. Multi-launch. This has receivers, change projects. Gateway, we can remove that one. Don't crash. Consumers, receivers, we can remove that one. Pipeline changes, which means that one gets removed from there. At row 10, executable not found. What? What? I don't remember saying to run it, but okay. Come on, stop running. Edit. What the heck? Okay. Edit configurations. Delete. Come on. At row 10, executable not found. So, um, this is now stored in the run file. So let's see if that open in Explorer dot run fullstack dot run dot XML. Interesting choice. Interesting choice. Pipeline changes. So that does not store that piece. That's fine. So, oh, so you let me remove it. Receivers changes, but that's not a thing anymore, is it? Receivers changes. Oh, did I delete the wrong one? No, no, I didn't. Pipeline infrastructure changes is what okay. Pipeline infrastructure changes. I still want receivers changes. Sorry. And I want that one there because receivers should start before consumers. So receivers for reference are still consumers. Receivers is a name I give to the Kafka consumers because there's a wrapper library around the consumer where I actually receive the event in from Kafka and process it. Consumers are service bus consumers, but they both use the words consumer, and I use both technologies. So receivers versus consumers, they're identical in concept. Uh, Wrapper libraries are to make upgrading easier. Morning, daughter. Not my primary concern. It does actually make upgrading a little harder because now I'm now I'm reliant upon that wrapper library being updated before I can actually use. So if I wanted to move to .NET 9, I have to move that wrapper library to .NET 9 first. In theory. Um, my primary reason for using a library like my Kafka stuff is because it makes the API easier to understand and less repetitive. In theory, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, how I use Kafka is not. It can be a blessing and a curse, right? Okay, so let's start that up. Let's see if we fix that problem. Oh, that that's sort of fixed. So yeah, as I'm going through today, as I'm going through this process, what I'm failed to get configuration from console. Interesting. What I'm asking is, how do I get effective feedback, or how do you get effective feedback on an application? Not just Liquid Sky, but how do you gather effective feedback when it comes to um, applications? Do, how do you understand what is useful versus not useful? How do you understand? How do you differentiate things to work on versus things to ignore, and how do you acknowledge the ignoring? All sorts of questions like that. That's what I'm kind of thinking about as I'm doing this today. Worst case, logging in prod. Well, no, I'm talking about asking the questions. Actually, if you are like, my intention here is to let people play with this, right? But I don't want to just open it up as it stands and say, "Hey, have at it and tell me what you think," because that's going to get a lot of repetition, and obviously there's a lot more to come. So do I outline, here's where the application's heading? Yeah. And it's not just me. I'm talking in general, because what I'm learning is that a lot of places make decisions based upon some really weak understanding of requirements. So how do you gather feedback on what you have, and how do you interpret that properly? That's what I'm trying to contemplate right this second. And it's not just about Liquid Sky, right? Liquid Sky, I do want people to play with soon. Um, sorry, I'm talking as I should be doing something. I do want people to play with soon. But in the same, I don't want to just open it up and have criticism, or um, well, that will tell me from my perspective, but I know how to use it. So yeah, the feedback is going to be biased in that respect, right? How do I determine that I've solved someone's problem? Because if I tell you how to use it, and now I know that the application isn't in a great place visually. It needs a lot more work. It needs actual workflows. And we're trying to work on that. Um, but functionally, behaviorally, is the vision possible? Do I need to gather feedback at this phase? Right now, I don't think I need to gather feedback other than, yeah, it ain't working, or it doesn't do this, or maybe it could do this. But as I go forward, that needs to be more targeted to understand, am I solving the problems? Right. And that's the same for any application, whether it's um, an application you work in or an application I work in. What? Uh, API gateway. Failed to bind to address 5222. Interesting. I first put a dog food in a poker app and then went and asked poker players what they thought of the program. Ultimately, my opinion on dog food is what mattered most in that scenario. Yeah, it's a hard balance because obviously I don't want to open if I open up Liquid Sky and I say, hey, everyone play with it if you want to play with it, right? Go play with it. Well, I'm not I'm not expecting someone to pick it up and run with it to start with. So every piece of feedback I gather is going to be based upon what people expected it to be, what their understanding of how they got through it was. They might ask for something because that's the way they kind of think. How do I filter that out as well? How do I put it in nice little buckets of okay, that's actually valuable feedback, and I need to take the positive and the negative as well. I can't just take everything that's like, oh, it's almost to a point where I would consider minimum viable. I'd really like to get notifications fleshed out and working more before I really say it's MVP. But we are at a point where it's close to what I'd say is MVP. Um, I do want to see if I can find someone to do UI UX, and we are talking to someone. Um, Notifications, I don't know. From a dev perspective, I kind of like that tied to the pull request directly. But no, the notifications on the other side. And again, that's another challenge. My audience is developer, not the target for Liquid Sky. You guys are the guys that would like to say, "Hey, here you go. Uh, go tell your PMs about this." Right? um, the target audience for Liquid Sky is not the developer. The target audience for Liquid Sky, oh, that pull request AI project that I'm doing is going to be at least two people. I could tell you that since it's more than one person. Yeah. Oh, come on. Failed to bind to address. Interesting. None of the systems will start. Okay, 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 okay. Uh, 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 uh. I'm pretty sure there's a way of starting rider elevated. Let's find out if that's the cause. If in doubt, run as administrator. Oh, look, you've completely ignored everything I asked you to remove. That's awesome. You've restored everything that was there before. Oh no, you can't find any projects right this second. That's awesome. But yeah, get gathering feedback. So if I'm building a product, actually let's say Liquid Sky has been out there for 12 months, right? And there's no major complaints. It's working. There's users. There's a good number of people using it on a daily basis. My only metric is error rate, right? And I find that there's less than 0.1% of errors. 0.1% of all requests have an error in them, whatever, or less. 0.1 would actually be kind of high. But um, that's the only kind of insights I have, right? I have the fact that, 10,000 tasks have been created, or, there's 1,500 planning items, or whatever there is. There's statistics I can pull that tell me that people are using it, and I can kind of use that to interpret features, or to usage. But I can't educate myself on the actual product from that perspective, right? How do I understand how my users are using the system? How do I ask them the right questions? Again, not trying to ask questions with an answer in mind, um, but but you can't. You, I could use tools that record user sessions, but that doesn't tell me what the person's thinking as they're doing it. It doesn't tell me, because I'm looking at the application through a different lens all the time. And when I'm talking about the application, I am trying to make this more general. You do want to talk to them, but another challenge you face, especially when you're early on in a product development, is filtering out what is a useful change to make versus what are you trying to please the user? And as developers, we do often try and please the user. Um, yeah, but I think you'll find that weird if I hack into your webcam and or into your computer and sit watching you. um, um, but I know. Um, it's a hard challenge because, again, we like to please the end user. So if you're asking, hey, what would be cool here? Like, oh, this would be cool, this would be cool. It's very easy to get drawn into that. And there are platforms, and unfortunately, Liquid Sky is too small. And this is a problem that a lot of projects are going to have, is they're too small to gather any um, useful quantity of feedback. So you can't validate. Now, platforms like User Voice exist. It's basically someone puts in what they think it should do, and or how they feel about the application, and then other registered users of the application can log in and rate it, and then you can gather an idea of, okay, well, here's the worth of this project, right? This is actually features that Liquid Sky itself could have some of, right? That's what we've talked about, right? But user voice is a way of taking that feedback and saying, okay, well, yeah, here's the value of this idea. But user voice is too big to use for a startup project. There's Canny, which is CANNY.io. That's another similar product, it looks like, to user voice. But that's great on an established product if you want to use it, right? And you've got to accept that there's going to be good and bad. You can't monitor that, or filter that. Okay, so is this going to run now? Let's see. But yeah, this is on my mind because I would like to understand how people do gather feedback, as well as thoughts and opinions on how to gather feedback about Liquid Sky as I start to let people play with it. Again, I'm not looking for people to tell me how they think it should be built. I'm not looking for, um, as I call it, idea farming, right? I'm not looking for people to give me. I've got enough ideas just off what I have done to get a long way through this. What the heck is happening? Failed to bind to address. Failed to bind to address. I don't know, you don't touch the application for a couple of weeks and all of a sudden, after Windows updates some ports. Oh no. That would be very bad. There's all the hand waving that happens on the value of a new feature. Yeah. Um, let's see. How would I even notifications? No particular. I'm looking at this shouldn't actually services. Let me not do this on the same screen. Oh, that's going to break everything. That's going to break. Let's see. I'll just try it again. Not what I wanted to be doing today. So we're already running elevated, which would be my first guess when I see network issues. This is going to fail again. This is not going to change that. Is that working? No, no. Initializing debugger is about to fail. Or maybe not. I'll start the client. That was host network service restarting. Thanks, Doctor. Okay, let's go. Okay, so here's the application. Sign in. um, DBO, tables, users. What I'm looking to do is make a change and validate that it um, shows the change. Because that means that the details have been processed and it's gone through. That's the actual live site. Okay, so this is working. Everything's past due because we haven't logged in a couple of weeks. Deploy Liquid Sky to staging. I think we can safely move that past November 5th. 1 month later. Really? I started. Oh dear. I suppose, yeah. Actually, let's move that to the 10th. There you go. So what we should see is changes should appear eventually in here if things are working correctly. Right. Order by ID descending. So the 10th of October. No, the 1st of October, sorry. So that's not looking good, is it? Did it process the change? So Mongo changes collections. There you go. Okay, so of course I put no date on these records, so that's stunning. Last updated. Because it's Mongo, there's no default date ordering there, so that's not going to help me. So I best go and figure out which object I just changed. So we have a planning item. That planning item is AD1E. It's not there. Awesome. So what that suggests is that the pipeline never picked it up. So this pipeline event never picked it up. And so changes published it. No, changes actually never received it, did it? Did I not start? Yeah, changes started. They're all started. So basically what happens is this picks it up, processes it out. Yeah, it doesn't look like that actually got anything, does it? The idea is that this will then publish the fact that a change happened, and it will then get picked up by pipelines, which will then add detail to that if necessary. So let's go and see what the local host 8080. So AKHQ. We have changes. So there's a review date. So the change was there. And there's no lag. So pipelines integrations picked it up. Hold on, why did pipelines integrations pick that up? Are they all part of? Why isn't changes a consumer there? Changes consumers. Changes infrastructure receivers. Receivers. Let's have a look and make sure that's the right thing. Changes infrastructure receivers. Yeah, that's done. That's started. So the wrong changes consumers. Look at this kind of planning items. Well, I suppose yes, that should publish a change, shouldn't it? So it did. It published a change. Of course it did. The problem was that the topics, the detail never got published. So did this not receive it? So if we go and put a breakpoint here, we'll see if that actually makes a change. Let's change this to be changes. So let's stop. Receivers. Pipeline data. Let's validate that that is actually pipeline data. Receivers, pipeline data. Let's call that change pipeline. Change. It's not. It is a kind of decorator. Changes pipeline. Full stack. Let's try that. So if you are new to the stream, you're hanging out, you're more than welcome to ask any questions. If you have any thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to join in. Okay, so that says that's working, but that's not going to work. Unless that produces... Let's make one more change. Let's make a change to a different task. Make more progress. Let's remove that. Let's change that to be today. That makes that current. Yeah, that makes more planning items. Consumer groups. Lag 3, yeah. LS notifications integration, lag 3. It knows there's lag. Okay, so we got to give that a minute. It's running. It knows there's lag on that topic. Edit configurations, full stack. Oh. Oh. Changes pipeline. Not to worry. Not to worry. Let's stop running everything. Let's see. No, my luck, I'll break the whole service again. That'd be awesome. So the way changes works is when we publish a record of something, the The changes system says, have I seen this entity before? No, I haven't. Okay, let's compare it to what I saw last time. Um, Here's the fields that changed in it. The pipeline piece says, okay, well, as data is created from the system, I'm going to consume the data that I need to use to enrich. And as I see a change, I'm going to say, okay, well, hold on. Do I need to add more information to this to give more details? So if it's like, oh, the user changed from A to B, changes is just going to tell you the field changed A to B. It's not going to tell you, oh, that's Bob Smith to John Jones or whatever, right? It's just going to say A to B. The pipeline is needed to add enrichment to that. The benefit being there that parts of the system, if they need to, can react to just changes, right? So if I need to say, let's look for, so monitoring could say, hey, I just need to care if a user changes. That's what the user needs. What it changed from to does not necessarily matter. And even if it does, I'd probably have the ID rather than the actual name, right? So the idea there is that you could respond to changes without having details about what changed, because what the details can come later, right? Um, it's a little convoluted, but it does allow more granular behavior. So yeah, let's start that up again. Now, my problem with these sorts of things is that I think that a lot of the time the difficulty comes in that the development system is hard to reset every time. Um, and it's why I'm doing the deployment piece, right? Is it does as much as I don't want to sit here tinkering with deployment all day, I think that it is a necessary piece to practice. It's a necessary piece to keep going through. Okay, so I think we're gonna get there. Yeah. And because we know it's not new because it's not empty. Created is the change type. I'm just going to process this and see what happens. I don't really want to spend time debugging something that I think should work given. Why didn't you publish? Do I not? Do I ignore process update? Do I ignore review date changes? No. I guess I'm doing that again. Assigned. Oh, no. Wrong system. Having a moment there. Assigned to Jeffrey. I realized that I had headphones in as I went to stand up. Oh, I wonder if I just deleted something. No, no, this is all part of the regular code. See, lag again. Start that one once more. Let's start that up again. We haven't focused on changes in a few months, so um, Because in general, it's just kind of worked since we got the initial build in there. That's not in a breakpoint now, is it? Oh, there we go. As he, as we hit a breakpoint, let's see if this is behaving. The problem is when it's running like this, if it hits an error, there we go. That's why. Get required services. I removed the thing, didn't I? So if we look over here, pipeline changes receivers, I bet you there's a line in here that says, "Oh, add these processors, by the way." Program. See these resolvers? Interesting. Interesting. So So what was happening there was it was erroring and delaying retrying. Um, I didn't really need to restart everything, but I had to do it that way. And that's why source control is good. So again, if you haven't seen this before, um, what I'm trying to get working right now is this changes and the pipeline stuff here, right? Um, this is pipe. I call it pipeline, but it's kind of all part of the same thing, which is why pipeline. But it's really enrichment rather than anything else. Okay, so we got the did we get to the next phase? No, we didn't get there again. That break again. So the problem is when because it's all behind a task, it's all behind a um, thread. I need to get better at putting the logging in there because what's happening is that task is just dying, and it doesn't log out that it died. It doesn't log the failure. It's a problem with it's a challenge when you're doing async await stuff that things just end and you don't know they've ended. So that's just going to take a few more seconds before it picks up again. There we go. Okay, so we got the processor this time. We failed there. Why did we fail? Faulted. Not need to wait for things. Did I really have an exception? Do I have a bad? So the processor planning item processor has resolvers. Resolvers have yeah, that's what those are. Resolvers, project change and user change. If there's no resolver, the idea is that it will just add that change. And being that the change was the change was user, wasn't it? Let's have a look. So this is receiving changes, processes, resolvers, user change resolver. Somewhere in here, I'm going to throw an exception that is need to wait for things. I don't see anything need to wait for things. Looks like my sort of stuff. App pipelines, changes processor, process update, right? Need to wait. There you go. If source user is null. So the challenge there is, I believe, we have a chicken and egg. So what happens is this system, you see user receiver, is meant to contain the data of the system as it's created, right? So as planning items are added, as users are added, it's going to store all that data. It doesn't have to care about tenant necessarily. It probably will do eventually. It probably should make that care about tenant eventually. I don't want to have the risk of telling someone a bank card, well, it won't show a bank card change, but I don't want to say an email change and then provide the wrong username. But the idea is that it collects the data from the system as it grows, and it now has that data to refer to. This is a timing problem, and it's one of the issues I'm going to have with this is, well, what if that user hasn't actually got processed yet, right? This one can't proceed. And it's okay because, like I said, the pipeline idea is that if I need to react to the fact that something did change rather than what changed, then I can do that quicker. If I want to see the values that changed, I'm going to have to enrich things like adding the users. Oh, the name changed from A to B. ID to ID is not going to help me there, and I don't want to be storing that information on objects just because it's a requirement of the changes. So it's a hard balance. Now, the problem in this case is these things, as they process, they're realistically sagas. But if I'm not careful, what ends up happening is if that data is never coming, this gets stuck in an infinite loop of, hey, have you got the data yet? No. Have you got the data yet? No. All right. Every time a user comes in, we say, oh, by the way, are there any sagas that are triggered? Yes, there are. Let's refire them and see if they need to be worked upon again. You could end up with sagas just sat there not doing anything. And it's this sort of stuff where metrics and better analytics is going to help like identify problems in the system. Um, that's something I'm going to have to work on. In this case, what's happened is afternoon Rambling Geek. How you doing? In this case, what has happened is the user has not been stored in the MongoDB, right? And this is going to be another challenge when you bring a system online after the initial data process. You can't rely on Kafka to deliver all the data. So what we're going to end up doing is creating a suite of ETL tools to be able to populate new systems with the data from the existing systems, whether that be SQL to Kafka, SQL to Mongo, Mongo to SQL, Mongo to Redis, all sorts of other things. Which is why I've been trying to keep an eye out on what OneLine has been doing, because OneLine has been creating quite the um, tool set for a work project. I find that sort of stuff fascinating. Um, but I'm going to have to create a set of tools that allow me to say, okay, well, here's my source data, here's the target data, populate what you need. So if I need to bring on, in this case, I need to patch data because I'm missing something for whatever reason, I should be able to run a tool and say, that data can be there. It's just, we don't know why it didn't get there, but that doesn't solve the problem, right? We've got to have that data there. So what's happening here is this source user identifier, for whatever reason, we're going to find out which one now, is not there. That means is it's just going to crash and fail because I'm throwing an exception. Need to wait for things is my reminder. This cannot just be a linear piece. At some point, I'm going to have to hold up and say, oh, well, I don't have that data yet. So let's try again in a minute. So the reason I'm doing this right now is because I am going to want to deploy the changes piece, and that's the next piece to get working in the deployed version. So we have Pulumi is building up everything. It's starting up everything correctly for the most part. That Redis thing looks a bit dodgy. We've got the tunnel working. All this is working. Refinement now, getting it all smoothed out so it's running consistently. But changes is a big piece of this, so we need to get to this part. Just need to give this a minute to trigger. But yeah, what I'm asking is feedback, user feedback. If I was to release this today, or rather, if I was to open this up for people to log in and check out, etc., how do I filter out any feedback? How do I make sure that the questions I'm asking of people using it, that I have an idea of what I want to ask? If I just open the door and say, hey, test out this application, I have no idea what I'm going to get back. There's going to be a lot of, well, it doesn't do this and it doesn't do that. And I know it would be good if it could do this. And those sorts of things I've got to be very careful of, right? Because I have to filter out, this should fire eventually. I have to filter out, well, hold on, that's not actually an idea that I want to deal with, or that's not a, so let's, well, I'm waiting for that. Changes that box, pipelines, collections. That's interesting, doesn't have the user. Yeah, I have to make sure that I don't just open it up and say, hey, go play. I have to have an idea of what am I asking people to tell me, right? And am I ready for negative feedback? I think that a lot of I think that a lot of systems suffer from selected like picked feedback, right? And we don't understand all the time. This is in general, not just Liquid Sky. We don't always understand how are our users using the application. Are they using it the way we intended it to be used, or have they found a new way of using it? Is that way better? Is it because they've adapted their business process to the tool, or the tool to the business process? There's all sorts of reasons why something doesn't solve all the problems, and you're never going to find a perfect tool. Someone gave some advice the other day, and I'm trying to filter out. I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Thindle. on never changing an application. I think it was. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't know if it's credit or. um, um, but yeah, the gist was if it works, um, don't change it. Don't. Oh no, it wasn't. It wasn't Thindle. It was um Exocamil. And he was saying how if a form is out there, don't just go and change it because you don't know what tools and procedures, etc., people are using to get through that. He was specifically talking like a data entry form. Um, I kind of tend to disagree in so much as you shouldn't be afraid to change it if you need to change it, but you should understand how users actually are using it before you even attempt that. Like, are you solving the problem or have they adapted their things to your deficiencies? And understanding what questions you're asking. I'm just going to try and run this one and see if this picks it up. It should do. Um, and what expectations you're setting down when you ask people for feedback. Um, it's very, I said it earlier on, it's very easy to get into a process of, well, if someone asks for something in the application because they're trying to use it a certain way and they say, oh, well, it'd be cool if it did this, you don't want to just run off and implement that feature just because they've asked for it, right? You don't want to get into a pattern of just trying to please the users. Every decision needs to be validated against, is it good for the application? Is it the right thing to do for the vision of the application as it stands right now? Like if someone goes, oh, it would be cool if you could generate a story from this, and I immediately go, well, they call it a story, therefore let's change it all to story. Or I say, oh, well, they feel that would be good to generate from there. So yeah, let's generate it from here. And I had a button in there. Now I've complicated the application. Maybe someone else didn't think that way. Maybe someone else didn't actually work that way. And what I've done now is introduced a new way of doing something that they might never find, or it, it might be underutilized. So when you're adding features in, understanding the use case, understanding the need, and not being afraid to remove things as well. Um, but also, I got to protect my own vision of the application. Here's what I want to build. Um, Here's the goal I have in mind and why it's set apart from Jira. Um, I don't want to make it look like Jira because people are used to using Jira, and that's the feedback they give is based upon their experiences with Jira. So, there's all manner of reasons why. Oh, hold on, is this failing because it's not actually getting the right? No, because we have the repository. The repository remains the same because that's the application repository. All I've done is move the receiver inside of here. Let's say. So there was very little to change his receivers. All I've done is condense them. Removed API gateway. API gateway being removed is not a problem. That's expected. So yeah. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, thoughts, or opinions on this or on the topic of gathering user feedback, I'd be interested to know. What do you feel? What do you feel is effective feedback? How do you collect feedback about what you do? Um, do you think it's important to gather feedback, or do you think it's important just to deliver software the way you think it should be delivered? Come on, you know you can do it. Not sure why this takes so long. Dear. Twitch is kind of prompting for clips. It's like chat seems active. Maybe you want to clip this. Like Streamlabs posted a message in the chat. It's not an active chat. Like you might want to review your uh, rate of messages on the chat. So for anyone new to the stream, what I'm working on right this second is trying to get this changes piece to work on. The um the piece I'm particularly working on right of late is the deployment of the application to Kubernetes cluster. I've been focused on that for the last couple of weeks. Right now, I'm just trying to validate some pieces of the application before I move them into that to migrate to or create an actual deployable instance of it. But I need to test it first. So that's kind of what I've been stuck on right now for the last 40 minutes. But so far, we have uh, Kafka, SQL Server, Console, RabbitMQ running in Kubernetes. We have several of the application pieces already running, um, such as the client. So this is actually running in the Kubernetes cluster. Uh, we can view tasks. Or view planning items, we can add requirements, we can go to the task component and we can view the sprints, we can see the tasks and we can update the tasks. And this is all working right this second. So the goal of this the goal of this in the next couple of weeks is to basically get this deployed, have people tinker with it for a couple of days, wipe it all out, and then basically lock it down a little bit so that Mojo and I can use this to start to plan the application development and actually dog food the application and keep practicing this deployment piece, right? So when we have a new feature to deploy, uh, learn how to back everything up, make sure that everything's running, learn how to do migrations properly, and all those sorts of fun things, and just keep practicing that art while using the application to build the application. Um, but all I'm waiting for right now is a Kafka message to pick up, but it looks like it's failed to pick it up. So consumer groups, no, it knows there's lag. There's no point in updating offsets on something that knows there's lag there. So hold on, we know which message is going to process, right? We know which message is going to process. So let's have a look. Let's see if we can fill in the gaps without actually worrying about it. So Liquid Sky Changes is going to come in. This is a source user identifier of 31922E92, right? That's the source user identifier. We believe this is failing at, not that one, is it? It's not failing there. It's failing in the base processor. So it's failing on the base enhance call, which gathers the information about who sent it, right? So it's the default details, right, to gather that information. It's failing on gathering that from the change details from the user in the MongoDB, right? So that's going to be here. The challenge is these IDs are not stored in the same way. So how can is there a CLI for MongoDB? Because then what I'll do is I'll try and get the bin data of, let's have a look. That's the binary data. That's the GUID. Let's have a look. Get GUID as bin data MongoDB CLI. Yeah. So what I'll do is we can go over here. Actually, we can use the version in here. Mongo. Is it no exec? Mongo CLI. I don't quite know how to do this. I kind of want to. I just need to convert one to another to see what I'm looking at. Or query it and list them. Can I do? I mean, either way, let's have a look at who that 319922222 DBO users Jeffrey Winkle. So why wouldn't that be there? Pipelines. Jeffrey's there. So either the way of querying that has changed, or it's not getting source user identifier properly. Change details, source user identifier. Looks like that's working. Let's give it one more try. I dislike getting stuck on stuff like this because it just delays for no reason. Right? This was working, or seemed to be working. Actually, this will require us to wipe things out or build the ETL tools, which is challenging because this would fail instantly on the other side as well. I have to wipe out the topics to make sure it couldn't pick up any differences and delete the users. Come on, this is just simple stuff. Why are you taking so long? Okay, let's stop running that one. No, let's stop running. Stop running that one. Let's go full stack again. Changes base process. The breakpoint's there. Okay. That's the error we saw. We did get that error. So initially we weren't including the right pieces in the dependency injection. That's fine. And again, the reason I haven't focused on this component for a while is because I don't think it's the final version. I think there's a little bit more refinement I want to make in terms of its behaviors. I want to consider different design, being more saga based, essentially. Um, and that way I can allow for things being out of sequence and alert to them so I don't lose. Because right now, what happens is if this can't process, this throws an exception. It doesn't record. And why is that now showing as no code available? This is built to drive me crazy today, isn't it? Rudy Shoes, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome in. It's just one of them days. Dear. Come on. How can you not? There you go. No, not necessarily. Debugger didn't start. So it's trying to process these 5 messages, right? It should process this one first. We're failing to get this user. So what I want to do is validate that that's the user it's trying to pass in. So that's what I'm waiting for in a second. Stay empty. See that bugs me. Preparing. Oh well, no, I suppose. LS pipelines integrations. Notifications is fine. Oh, hold on. It thinks it's processed them. I'm looking at the wrong one. That is why. It thinks it processed them. I was looking at the wrong one all along. So what I want to do is update offsets on changes to 174 or 172. Yeah. We do that until it goes green. um, it takes a while for Kafka to realize that the broker's the consumer has disappeared. So basically, it's like no. The group's in rebalancing or whatever. So there you go. See, update now, reload. Now I should be able to restart this, and now I should be able to get the error. Although my guess is I'm not going to get the error now. This is when you have to do stuff like that. This is when Kafka gets a bit scary because it seems like that's unnecessary and it seems like that's fragile, and it is if you have to do it. But in production, okay, here we go. Okay, so source user identifier. Why you know? Entity by identifier spec. Identifier equals identifier. But I don't see why that doesn't. So it has given it the right identifier. That's worrying. Um, why is that doing that now? Don't know how to necessarily query this correctly. This was working. Uh, this is the challenge with having all this built out. Is this is really not easy to pull out and test, and that's oftentimes why you end up with code hacked in because you can't necessarily test it very easily. What would I do here? Well, first I want to validate that. I want to validate that I can query that data, right? So if we open LinkPad, you can use Scratch files in Rider. I'd still go to LinkPad as my go-to. Close that. No. Okay. Let's do C# program. F4. Add NuGet. MongoDB. Update that one. I want to update to 9, aren't they? Add to query. Entity framework. Specific version to query. 8.11. I don't honestly think that should matter. Um, okay, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's see. Public class sample context, DB context. Yeah. DB context options, sample context options. Public class user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my context. So let's take, I don't want to take everything out. It goes there, it goes here. It goes there. It's that. User type configuration to collection users. We can do that without messing around with override on model creating builder model builder dot entity user. Wow. Dot to collection. Oh, MongoDB test. Something tells me I've already done this. Something tells me I've already done this. There we go. But now that is, oh yeah, it's the same thing. Okay, we've done it. widget, document is identified. Yeah, so I did some testing, but it's not exactly what I want to do. However, it is good enough to yeah, there you go, to give me the samples. So what I did is I created a static method to build me a version of the context of that. So then I can do that, and I have the context. This is going to be, but I want to query the real thing. So this is going to be pipelines. And then we're going to do var users equals from you in context dot users. Select new id equals u dot identifier, name equals u dot name, users dot dump. Boom. Anonymous type. ID of property. Let's just change that around a bit. Let's not even bother with the queries first. Context that users dot dump. Expected BSON binary subtype to be UUID standard, but it's UUID legacy. The joy. I don't believe I set anything different in here. Okay. That's going to matter, isn't it? Yes. That's interesting. What version of MongoDB am I actually using here? Manage NuGet packages. Not using anything in that one, am I? So the beauty of doing it this way is with the abstraction around repositories. 8.11. I'm on the right version. Right. 8.11. Oh no. Let's change that. Remove, add NuGet. Let's make sure I'm on the same exact version for the sake of MongoDB.entity framework core 8.11. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I lost my train of thought on that one. Being pinged. Okay, that's cannot grid serials I cannot describe the grid include a standard and binary subtype. I don't remember setting the configuration though. So that's interesting. That might be the challenge, right? So that might be based on defaults, unless I do actually set that somewhere. bson defaults. Project solution. No, I do not. Okay. Let's validate that. What do you say? Configure serialize instead. On what? uh, register serializer. Here we go. Possible. Yeah, but they're not. That's not on here either. Dot. You don't set that on there. Oh, that's not a thing. Like, it makes sense. So maybe this is actually causing that problem underneath, right? It's not allowing it to serialize, deserialize properly. But, and I have come across this before, but I did have this working. So that's the more confusing part right now. This is Mongo changing how GUID work, right? Documentation still says that. Awesome. Is that the latest version of the driver? No, 3 is the latest version of the driver. Serialization. GUID. GUIDs. Yeah, see, that's... If you're using .NET C# driver to automate C# classes, you can add the bson GUID representation, which I don't want to do. The following code sample, because if you most of your GUIDs use the same representation, you can register a GUID serializer. Okay, so bson serializer dot register serializer. If you don't globally register a serializer, you must apply the bson GUID representation attribute to every serializable GUID. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back here. So that's saying we just need to do that. And I believe that should not be standard. That should be legacy, C# legacy. Nope. There's already... Right. Oh, tell me that's not. So in .NET, in ASP.NET, there's kind of the I saw that in a lot of these libraries, there's this concept of clearing them out. Right. Cannot do it. GUID representation is standard and binary subtype is UID legacy. Okay, let's try the attribute. We have to use the attribute. We have to use the attribute, but I don't want to use the attribute. And that's going to be wrong anyway, isn't it? What that's saying is that that's going to fail. User event is not annotated with unsupported. BSON unsupported. So I'm using what? How do I know what driver this is then? Um, suppose namespace imports MongoDB driver. What is that one? I want to know what that version is. I want to know what I don't know what version you're using. It's got to be a way of doing that, right? Morning, Napalm. How you doing? Sorry. Today is Drive Yourself Crazy with Libraries Day. So the one method that the other code recommended was to use the set. It said register serializers. That method doesn't work. And it tells me that the attribute is wrong. If using .NET to automatically classes document schemas, you can add the bson GUID representation attribute to a GUID, but it's telling me that that's wrong. Unsupport is annotated with unsupported. So that suggests the driver's wrong. Uh, oh. 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 Morning's off to a great start. Push a drink coffee button, so now my latte is a little water. It only go up from here, I suppose. Exactly. Okay, so the problem there is that attribute isn't supported in the EF core driver. BSON. So um, so I suppose what we need is to figure out where the entity framework piece is. Entity framework provider. EF core provider. Let's go with that. Fundamentals, limitations. It doesn't mention that in there, does it? Query data, quick reference. Do we have any reference as to GUIDs? Like you're telling me that's not a common use case. Apparently not. Apparently it's not common to use GUIDs. It's not a limitation. We're not using optimistic concurrency. Right data configuration, maybe. Oh, create a DB context, use MongoDB. Do you want to give me an idea how to use GUIDs properly? No? No? Okay. Issues and help. Create a Jira account. What's new? Breaking changes. That's breaking changes aren't going to be a problem because I'm not. Good. It doesn't limit it to the tools you're looking at. MongoDB. Oh, here we go. Let's have some fun. Let's ask Gemini. How do I configure MongoDB when using Entity Framework Core Provider to use GUIDs properly? My bet is, and this is just knowing me, what I've done is I have put this code in there to validate this after validating some other stuff. And I believe this was working and moved on from changes. So I've not done a very good job of testing it because this is not easily testable code. So that is a failing of me. Okay, let's see. Understanding the basics, install the required package, create an entity class, on configuring key points. Not what I asked you. BSON ID. That's not how that works, is it? I mean, we can test that. BSON ID. Provides identifier and ID on a mapped. As key, K goes to K.ID. What is it? Properties identify an ID and entity type user and map the element ID. Map one of them to a different BSON element. No, because it's not the ID, is it? I deliberately want an ID. That's the BSON ID. Okay, so BSON ID is the same as doing that. So now we're back to that one. Okay. I'm not using my GUID as a key. I have another field. I'll see. I'm deliberately testing to see if it's going to give me anything different. No, you're going to give me the same answer. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what you get told now. Additional. Consider using object ID if you're not specifically tied to using GUIDs. Yeah, I kind of need the GUID. Like, it won't work if I try and use. I want an ID. Because as little chance as there is of GUIDs colliding, I don't want to risk GUIDs colliding. Let's do this. I don't want to update. Not where I wanted to get stuck today. to be honest. I wanted to be way further down the line with this. I wanted to be deploying this changes piece, but obviously we now have to fix this. This is not something that I can ignore because it is a kind of fundamental component. Combining them into one service was the right thing to do. And this is what will throw you off, right? When you make a decision. So the cost of doing this is that I've now got some quirks to figure out, right? I've now lost control of the timeline, which is again why giving time estimations is a hard challenge because you can't know what's going to come up. So what happens there? Well, I go, oh well, let's revert that change. Let's go with what we've got. Now we've got to deploy two services. Now that becomes even harder in the future because now I've got two services out there and I have to say, oh, well, we need to deprecate one and bring one up a different way and configure that. Oh, well, it's just easy to leave them as they are. So just don't worry about it, right? Even if it's the wrong design. So I don't want to get into that pattern. I want to fix the things that need to be fixed. Obviously, if there's customers chomping at the bit for a fix and I've got to get this fixed out, I've got to decide which bad choice I'm going to make. I prescribe to the Carmack philosophy. When is the next Doom going to be out? When it's done. I agree. And I agree that delivering the best product to the customers is the best choice. But it's often not done right. And um, we as users are very quick to jump on disliking. I won't say the H word, but we're very quick to jump on disliking products because of bad experiences based upon problems. So if the company doesn't rush to fix them, we generally treat them poorly. And even as developers, we do that. I can't use object ID. I need to use a GUID, and it's possible, but how do I serialize? How do I query GUID when I get the error message? This is funny. Consider using object ID. It does not want to help me out there, does it? Is that a storage problem more than anything else? Um, Failing. If I do users dot add new user ID identify equals GUID.new GUID name equals test. Is this a driver difference? Email equals test at test.com. I've been working on freaking private endpoint for a blob account for the better part of a week. Make changes, introduce similar in Pulumi stack on paper. This shouldn't take long in reality. Yeah, we often lose control of those things, right? We we don't always have. Okay, so that's stored. So let's have a look at what that's stored. Um, Failing. uh, Okie dokie. Oh, hold on. Is that actually required in? Yes, it is. That's interesting. It doesn't create the database until it does. Ah, isn't that interesting? That's why. It's a dev. A question why you want me working on networking related things, given it is such a specialization. Well, do more with less is the attitude. You're not wrong. Um, the, it's why a full stack developer is getting further and further away from a reality. It's not just dumping in the cloud, right? It doesn't just work that way. And that's a general problem we have. Okay, bud. Okay, give me a second. Um, that being said, the time just dawned on me. So the Mongo driver is not it's changed somehow. I've updated it somewhere and now it's failing because now it's recorded data in the wrong place. So if I update this to GUID, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder if I can change those to GUIDs. Um, okay, bud, I got you. Okay. Um, okay. So no stream tomorrow. I will be at a doctor's appointment, so no stream tomorrow. I'm going to continue working on this. I'm going to try and get this data updated and see if the driver queries it without doing any other code changes. But it is interesting that now Mongo is storing the GUID. So either drivers um, updated or otherwise. But anyway, I'm going to raid full bots again. I don't want to raid into the Captain Coda. Too many people. um, Thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging out. I will update in the Discord. If anyone's interested in following along, you're more than welcome to go into Discord and ask questions. But I will be back on Monday, resuming this effort. If I get this working, I will just continue on. It will not, because my goal is to get into the application next week. And okay, look, don't forget, Community Day on one line stream tomorrow. But I can't shut that out. Take care, all. Have a great day. Thank you all. Bye.